Hi everyone. So the book I chose to look at of the three books that we read was Dan Santat's The Adventures of Beagle, the Unimaginary Friend. And I think that the colors and shapes that the author chose, he began with such bright colors to signify how amazing and the imaginary land where Beagle was created. But then once Beagle got to the adult world, the colors became dark and dull to signify something that was scary and new. But when Beagle finally found Alice and the other kids, the colors weren't as dark and dull anymore, but they were bright and fun, and they signified that because they were together now, that the world wasn't so scary. So another book that I read this week was My Friend Rabbit by Eric Rahman. And in the article Design Matters, we learned that design is just a variety of things, like the style, the font, the color type of the font, the kind of paper, the size of the book. And I think the design of this book had a really uniform text at the beginning. The font was the same, and the text size was the same. The color never changed. That was for the majority of the book. However, at the very end, actually have it here. At the very end, so this was the font of the book for the majority of the book, but then at the very end, here during the dialogue, the font changes and the sizing changes. And I think that this was done to tell the reader that maybe because they're in the sky, they're far away, and so it's quieter, and it's smaller, and it's crazy because they're flying around. One part of this book I really enjoyed was this illustration right here. Once Rabbit got all of the animals stacked up, you had to turn the book this way to see the entire picture. And I think that just really showed the readers how tall they actually had to get all of those animals stacked up. As for some of the illustrations, more on the illustration side than the design, one of the books that I really liked was Hello Lighthouse by Sophie Blackell. And in this book, we start with, this picture too, but also this picture, an aerial point of view of the lighthouse and the ship. But once we get to the keeper being here, the viewpoint basically stays like this for the majority of the room, like you're sitting right outside, because now the keeper's inside, and that's where the story's going to take place. And that definitely changes the point of view that the kids had, and it shows the setting that we are about to take in. And it definitely reinforces the text in many places. Like here, it talks about a terrible storm, and it shows like all these terrible things happening and then saving the sailors. One of my favorites from this book was this one where it talks about fog, and it looks almost like on this page that it's just white, but once you come to this page, you can see the outline of the lighthouse. And I think that was a really cool illustration. Another illustration that I really liked from this book was even before we found out that his wife, the keeper, was pregnant, they show us this picture where you can obviously tell that she is. And I think this is now like kind of like foreshadowing, and this just really stuck with me. And I think it just developed the plot into a definitely deeper, because we saw now what was happening. The last book, and my favorite of the readings that we read this week, was Sleep Like a Tiger. This was written by Mary Logue, then it was illustrated by Pamela Zagorski. And I just really loved the story and the illustrations in this book. The illustrations definitely piqued my interest the most. Two of my favorite from this book were this one, where it reinforces the text, and it says that the girl's pajamas look just like the night sky. And if you notice, the pajamas have the same print as the stars outside the window. Another one was this next one, where it talks about how she climbed into her bed and she lying still like an otter on a stream. And if you look closely, you can tell that her bed is now blue like a stream, and there's the otter laying in the water. And there's like water down here. These both reinforced what the text was saying. Another thing I noticed was the girl here, she wore a crown during the entirety of the book. And if you look, this one, her parents are also wearing a crown. And then later the bear and the tiger, this tiger here, are wearing crowns. And I think that just kind of shows that these characters are important to the book. Even though her parents only say a few words, like you don't have to go to bed right now, but you need to lay in bed or you need to do this, still shows that these characters are important to the book. I think that the last few illustrations, so as she's alone, her parents walk away and tell her to go to bed. She talks here how she's cozy, like in a nest and in a cocoon. And here she is in a nest, but if you notice here, there's flags. And this signifies that if you go back a few pages, here, that she's still in her bedroom, but she feels like she's in the nest. And I think that adds to the textual coherence, because they do that during the rest of it. Here's the more flags, but here she is by the fire, but she's still in her bedroom. Here she is in her bed, but she's in the barn. Here she is in her bed, but she's also in a snail. And this one here, as the flag signifies, she's laying next to a tiger in the open, but she's also snuggling into her bedroom. And I think that just definitely showed kids that, she's still in the safety of her bedroom, but she's just showing that she's laying and she's sleeping like the tiger.